For question number 1, 67% of your classmates answered this question correctly. This question is asking you to look at the results of experiments 2 and 3 and determine which object would produce different results in glycerin than in water. We will only need to look at Table 1 and Table 2 to determine the answer. On each of these tables, we will only need to observe wood, amber, brick, and aluminum in the results column. Ignore the ice, rubber, and density columns. Wood floats in both experiments. Brick sank in both experiments, and aluminum sank in both experiments. Amber sank in experiment 2 and floated in experiment 3. The best answer is B, amber. For question number 2, 66% of your classmates answered this question correctly. This question is asking how the design of experiment 3 differed from the design of experiment 2. We will need to compare and contrast the passages from experiment 2 and experiment 3. Both experiments used the same 6 objects, and they both were looking for whether the objects were going to sink or float. Both experiments used liquids. However, experiment 2 used water and experiment 3 used glycerin. The best answer is C. The liquid used in experiment 3 was different from the liquid used in experiment 2. For question number 3, only 62% of your classmates answered this question correctly. This question only requires us to look at the results of experiment 2, so we'll be looking at table 1. We need to determine which object would be predicted to float in water. In experiment 1, there is information that states that the density of water is 1 gram per centimeter cubed. For future reference, this is a universally accepted value for the density of water. In looking at table 1, wood and ice float in water with densities of 0.4 grams per centimeter cubed and 0.92 grams per centimeter cubed, respectively. An object must have a density less than 1 gram per centimeter cubed in order to float. 3 of the options have densities greater than 1. The best answer is A, a piece of charcoal with a density of 0.55 grams per centimeter cubed. For question number 4, 57% of your classmates answered this question correctly. For this question, we need to determine how the objects in experiment 2 compare to the densities of water and glycerin. In experiment 1, it states that the density of water is 1 gram per centimeter cubed, and the density of glycerin is 1.3 grams per centimeter cubed. According to table 1, wood floated with a density of 0.4 grams per centimeter cubed, and ice floated with a density of 0.92 grams per centimeter cubed. Amber sank with a density of 1.1 grams per centimeter cubed. Wood and ice have densities that are less than 1 gram per centimeter cubed, which is the density of water. The best answer is A. The objects that had floated had densities that were less than the density of water. For question number 5, 54% of your classmates answered this question correctly. This question is asking us to determine the overall purpose of the experiments. The best way to answer this question is to use our knowledge of the previous questions and simply use the possible answers to guide your answer selection. Option A states that the purpose of these experiments was to understand why different substances vary in density. None of the experiments discuss why different substances vary in density, so option A is not correct. Option B states that the purpose of these experiments was to calculate the densities of solid objects composed of different substances. None of the experiments asked you to calculate the density, so option B is not correct. Option C states that the purpose of the experiments was to test how the density of a solid object affects its behavior in different liquids. After answering questions 1 through 4, we have compared whether or not objects float or sink in both water and glycerin. Thus, option C is correct. To double check our answer, we should also read option D, which states that the overall purpose of this experiment was to determine how the density of a liquid is related to its mass and volume, which was not done. Thus, the correct answer is C. The overall purpose of the experiment was to test how the density of a solid object affects its behavior in different liquids. To recap, question number 1, the correct answer is B, amber. For question number 2, the correct answer is C. The liquid used in experiment 3 was different from the liquid used in experiment 2. For question number 3, the correct answer is A. A piece of charcoal with a density of 0.55 grams per centimeter cubed. For question number 4, the correct answer is A. The objects that floated had densities that were less than the density of water. For question number 5, the correct answer is C. The overall purpose of the experiments is to test how the density of a solid object affects its behavior in different liquids.